Kubernetes SIG network meeting for Thursday, October 29th, 2020. First up is issue triage. Thank you, Bridget.
All right, we have a whole bunch of issues. I loaded it up a little bit ago, and oh, a new one came in at this last possible minute. So let's look at this brand new one, 28 minutes ago. We have.
Oh yeah, I literally just opened that. I noticed the test was failing.
Various failing tests.
Working on that.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see who said that.
That's Chris Luciano.
Yeah, the author, Luciano.
Did you self-assign that one, Chris?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, all right. It just doesn't. I guess because it says needs triage. So.
All right, Chris, can you remove needs
I'll
triage
remove
from
that?
Okay,
yep.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, moving right along. NF tables do not scale for services.
So this is something that I recently ran into, creating clusters on a systems like CentOS 8 Plus with NF tables enabled and Proxy in place. And what we try is what I'm saying, the repro steps, bigger cluster with plenty of replicas and a lot of services. And we are seeing that the NF tables kind of choke. I would say that they choke, and basically half of the services do not work. And the scale is around 500, what I'm saying. So.
I've been seeing the same problem. Actually, that's with the IP tables NFT wrapper. So if you run this in a newer kernel like 5.4 or something like that, it works fine. But when you are running in the 4.10, it's really slow. And the problem is the interface from the kernel and the CLI.
That's a good point. I would have to try with latest Debian probably to get that in.
Yeah. What I would say is that you need at least IP tables 1.8.4, and I noticed it said CentOS 8.1 up above. I would not recommend that combination. I would recommend at least 8.2
oh boy.
Or even better 8.3, which probably is not out yet for CentOS. There have been a large number of fixes since then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so 8, you say recommend. Oh, okay, I can retry it with 8.2.
Yep, I mean, or Ubuntu 20.10, or something a little bit more recent.
But so is 20.10 has a NF table based IP tables?
Yep. Yeah, it defaults to IP tables NFT.
All right.
And I assume that it should be somewhat recent. But again, you're going to want at least 1.8.4
IP tables.
Of IP tables, yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we'll take a look into that.
And I'm pretty sure CentOS 8.1 does not have that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay.
Does somebody want this assigned?
Yeah, just assign it to me.
Okay.
I can follow up with versioning.
I can't easily see who's saying what because Zoom it's being Zoom.
This is Dan Williams / DCBW. DCBW.
There you are.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Deployment with node selector and tolerations has node ports pointing to the wrong node IP. Say that 8 times fast. Let's see. There's some discussion in here. So picking the right node.
Is it already assigned to anybody? No.
No.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
Anybody want to volunteer to follow up on this? Again, following up means debugging.
I can take a look. Antonio.
Great.
Thanks, Antonio.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Oh, we have verb problems. Someone conjugate them.
This is sounding like not actually network.
Yeah.
These guys are working in adding conform.
Someone just removed SIG network. So
So
problem solved from our point of view.
Yep.
This is what I get for loading it half an hour ago or so. All right. Well, that sounds dramatically terrible. A single rogue node has the wrong CIDR. Should
Oh,
not
yeah,
have left that tiny
I did
breach in
that.
your defenses.
Yeah, I don't know. If this might not be a bug, it feels like a bug. I talked to Andrew about it. I don't know. It seems really weird. I don't know.
Not a bug.
It's
not
not
a
a.
bug.
It's supposed to do that.
So
Okay. Yeah.
the thing crashes if it cannot resolve, and the user needs to go and manually edit the CIDR. Either the solution to that is you just remove the CIDR. This has been there since forever, and I think it's the right way because that node will not get any functional pod with that.
But the kube controller manager shouldn't be crashing.
That's why I feel like it's a bug. Yeah, it kind of
So
violates.
it returns an error in the initialization and of the controller, of the IFAM controller, and that cascades all the way out to an error.
Yeah,
because this is the new controller code.
but why is that not a bug?
Well,
Because because there is no way the cluster can resolve itself.
is the bug though that maybe a better error message or a better exit? I mean, it's got an error message there. But
There is
it's, yeah.
So there is no continuation out of this, right? Because any pod gets created.
Why couldn't you just cord in the node and just like, I mean,
Just bump it out, be like,
And
out.
then how would the problem is cordoning the node and then uncordoning the node? You are messing with something that's not user intent, right? User intent is for this to function. Usually, users should not have this situation unless they manually modify pod CIDR, or they change the pod CIDR after it gets chunked and assigned to nodes. The point I'm trying to make here is there is no way we can recover from this. This is basically SIG fault. So if you want to allow it to happen, what will happen is the cluster will be randomly dysfunctional. And there is no way you can trace it to that.
I mean, but the KCM crashing counts as randomly dysfunctional as well. Like, I don't see how this is an improvement.
Yeah, but if it didn't crash, then it's kind of silent, and you'd have to kind of figure out why clusters like.
Yeah.
But it can log. I mean, okay, so that's a problem that we have. But
I'm not saying I don't have a strong opinion. Like this is not a hell I would like to die on. But the point I'm trying to make here is, if you let this work and you start assigning pods to this node, you will randomly get traffic disruption to pods and services.
Right. So don't assign pods to the node.
yeah. So the user story I have here was I was doing something stupid, but like I don't feel like I deserve to be punished in such a severe way that the whole, like I had a Windows cluster and a Kubernetes and a Linux cluster, and I'm federating them and I'm messing around with IPs, and I've got two different kube proxies going, and I've got a CNI that I'm not sure 100% sure it's working, and I'm playing around with stuff, and then boom, my whole cluster goes down. So that's my thinking here is that I would like for my Linux portion of my cluster, which is correct, to still work, even if that one Windows node is rogue, right?
All right. Given the time, Jay, would you like to follow up on this
Yeah,
one?
we can follow up. I can reach out to other people and see if we can continue the debate later.
All right. Why is it being slow? Okay. And I think we're at time, unless somebody really, really, really wants this one. People are suggesting calico.
I was going to say, just scroll until you see the word calico and then assign it to Casey.
Yep.
And assign it where? Sorry.
To Casey. But that's not really fair, especially since he's here.
Okay. I think I'll stop here and let us go to the actual agenda, but I'll leave this up in case we want to come back to it.
Sure. And maybe we'll have time at the end. All right. Some questions. Who is Jay? Is that you, Jay, or somebody else?
Oh yeah, I forgot what I asked though.
Yep, you're up. So does node local DNS KEP status need updating is the question.
Oh yeah, that came up somewhere. Someone was asking about it, and then I just figured out to add it to the agenda here. I don't know who here works on that, but I'm just kind of I figured somebody here.
This is Pavitra. I can look at it, but I don't know which KEP we're talking about. We have one with status implemented, and there's the beta one which says, which I have a PR for to change to implemented, but I don't know if there's a bigger change.
Okay, that's probably good enough. I mean, if you're looking at it.
Oh, just to clarify, I was only changing the status of the KEP. Is there anything else? It says important links or something. I'm not sure what the change is.
You know, I don't even remember who asked it at this point. So I'm sure I can look at it again after the meeting or something. And I'll ping you if I'm curious.
Oh yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
I actually don't know who added the important links thing, but that was not related to this one. That was a different bullet point. I didn't add it, but I was going to add it. So whoever it was, please say things about, do you want to update the important links? I really want to get rid of this features spreadsheet that has a comment from me pointing out that this spreadsheet talks about Kubernetes 117 and 118, and I just don't know why it's there.
We have not updated that spreadsheet for quite a while or done that for quite a while, so I think that can go away at this point.
Okay.
We can always bring it back if we're going to use it for like 120 for tracking.
I am happy. Thank you.
Were there any other questions about the important links section or just feature spreadsheet? All right. If not, back to Jay for kubelet net controller questions.
Okay, skip the other one. And then the other, I just had a quick one. Does anybody have any background on how external IPs are set for the kubelet versus internal IPs for nodes?
The administrator sets them.
Oh, they're just, okay.
Usually cloud providers set external IP and
Okay.
like it sets its own are you saying like node.status?
Internal is introspected and the external is like metadata, the cloud providers.
It depends.
Sorry, wait, oh, sorry. When I said the administrator sets it, I was talking about service external IPs.
Oh no, I meant like the actual external IP on the node.
So you mean node.status.address is node internal IP versus node external IP, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Dan will have something to say about that.
Yeah, so the cloud provider sets all of those unless you're on bare metal and have no cloud provider, in which case kubelet sets a single internal IP and nothing else. But now that you bring this up,
don't you have a PR for that?
Oh, well, there's a KEP about improving that situation, but I just filed a PR, which I'll paste in chat, about documenting what all this means.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Historically, it's been inconsistently implemented between cloud providers, especially the in-tree ones. I'm not sure if the situation is better now that some of the cloud providers have moved out of tree. But partly it's because like the public cloud providers had a more defined, had a better definition of what these things were that was more consistent between cloud providers. But then when we started adding other things like vSphere, OpenStack, and other stuff, that got a little bit muddied.
Not really consistency, just the VMs usually have one NIC and one IP and we're done. It gets really complex for on-prem.
What I mean is that at least the cloud providers had some notion of the VM has like an internal IP address, which all the other nodes can talk to it on directly, and an external IP where that node may or may not be exposed to the public internet or somewhere like publicly outside the cluster. That was like what as far as I understand, the traditional meaning of those two things was. But that got muddied somewhat when more cloud providers showed up.
Yeah, in general, we let the cloud provider decide because it may be external to the cluster, but still internal to your data center. So yeah, it gets a little messy. And maybe it was a mistake not to like have a better, well-defined types.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, you should definitely look at that Kubernetes PR that I just posted because you'll probably have opinions.
Thanks.
I mean, that's good enough for me.
Okay. All right, and we answered your question about the invalid out of range pod cider. So next up, Bridget, you have some accolades to hand out.
Oh, I just want to make sure we all take a moment because we had so many of these meetings where we talked about the dual stack PR of, amazing ginormousness. And I wanted just to have a round of applause for Cal and everyone on this call who got that merged. And it was enormous. Go look at the diff on there and then just think about reviewing that and think about giving yourselves all a round of applause for all the reviewing you did on that, because that was huge.
Yep, for sure.
And only took 1 day or for people to complain. That's the other record. Right, Carol.
Cal, you want to thank the Academy?
No, I just want to say that our job is not done. We still have a few follow-ups, specifically in the machinery part. Tim has been at it, and he is I think he took some time off and he just coded. So I'm hands off and just letting him do whatever. All right. So there is a bit of changes in the way we do machinery and so on for services. And we are going to copy the approach forward for the new things, like the Lars is working on multiple external IPs for services. And we want to copy it backward to pod IPs and pod ciders. So this is coming, but not as fast, right?
So on that line, what are the outstanding things now that PR has merged? We still have like the node addresses thing, cleanups, I think, Dan, that you had referenced. Do we still have the load balancer? Well, sorry, that's external IPs. We still have the health checking KEP stuff outstanding.
Yes. So feature-wise, we can start moving this to beta as soon as possible, because nothing is stopping us from actually start serving these things. From feature completeness perspective, we do need two things: the node IPs, because the node IPs means that host network pods will get dual stack correctly. The other thing is the external IP, so people can do external dual stack services. All right. Right now, because the way cloud provider works, they can only get one family, which is the cluster IP, family of the cluster IP, family of the old cluster IP. Again, I think of those as auxiliary functions or features to the core of what's already there. So my next action item is I think there is enough people thinking about the peripherals. I think we need to start thinking about the beta aspects of this as soon as possible, like stabilizing anything that needs stabilization. And we have, what's really comforting to me is we have plenty of tests out there for us to just look at them and watch them being green or red, and that will give us enough confidence in what we're trying to do. Did I miss any aspect, any feature, anything else? No.
Okay. Going back to what Dan was saying about the health check thing, we agreed to do nothing, leaving open the possibility that we might revisit it later. So the KEP was closed, well, the KEP was merged, saying we still only health check the first IP.
Yeah. So the way I think the way we want to think about this is dual stack means 1+. So we still have the core stuff plus. That means health check remains as that means cloud provider remains as until external IP thing is figured out. All right. That means everything. The one part that we really need, and I think Dan is working on, is the node addresses for on-prem dual stackness. because dual stackness on cloud is covered. Again, it's referencing the same discussion we just had. The cloud providers just have a clearer meaning of what IP are, what node IP are.
Yeah, but they know that IPs in kubelet in bare metal, Dan already fixed that.
Yeah, that's the part that Dan is trying to push forward, as far as I know.
No,
So you can
just,
manually override it. It won't auto detect it. And
okay.
Still the problem for clouds that some people think that the cloud shouldn't return IPv6 IPs in a single stack IPv4 cluster because it might confuse other components to see IPv6 IPs in node addresses. So there's still some figuring out to be done there.
What is the external IP thing that you mentioned?
Maybe I actually meant load balancer IPs.
Okay.
I should update that. I'll just remove that.
So interestingly enough, load balancer IPs are ruler. It's just external IPs. And so far, to be honest, I am trying to figure out why do we have two of them on the service type. But that's a different discussion. Yeah, it's exactly that. Like why? But in all cases, I do believe that when it comes to Egress traffic, people usually are very specific about the family that they're trying to expose and the IP they are trying to select, because this is typically audited by security, corporation, and yada yada. So I will not be in a hurry to actually have dual stack services external yet. I think we're good enough with what we have.
Well, I don't get, what do you mean by external? The egress traffic?
I mean, to go and say, okay, I have a service load balancer and it's dual stack, and then you automatically go talk to the cloud provider or your external load balancer and configure one service with two external IPs covering two families.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, devil's advocate, why wouldn't you want to do that if you're exposing, say, google.com and you have search? Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that you don't want to do that. I'm just saying usually people are very specific. And today you can do that, by the way, having two services, using the same selector, two different families, you get the same results. All right. They're just tying them to a single resource. Because clouds deal with IP as IP. They don't deal with IP as dual stack IP. Like you don't go to Azure, for example. I know, at least I know how this works, and say, give me an IP, and then you assign a family or two families. Clouds actually deal with them as two different resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who added the part about need to think about beta for 121 ASAP?
Oh, I wrote that based on what Cal was saying, which is, okay, we are doing alpha for this in 120. Great, 121 is next. We're going to think about beta for it.
Yeah, brainstorming there. What is the criteria to get to beta at this point? I know in the past couple of meetings, we had talked about lack of confidence in the API because nobody's really using it at this point. And obviously, I don't expect anybody to have used it in the last couple of days since Cal's PR merged. But where do we go? Do we just need some more time from the field and people to get comfortable with it and get the other PRs merged, or is there stuff above and beyond that?
Well, there's checklist items of number of, clouds that stuff works on and tests and whatnot that are different for beta than they are for alpha. I don't have it up, but I'm sure we can pull it up pretty quickly. And that's
the KEP was pretty vague about this. It was more just like the API is complete. And that was pretty much the beta criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I think once these things merge, we think the API is complete, but we had expressed some uneasiness with the API that it was complete in previous meetings.
I think we wanted to find out what the unknown unknowns are because we can't anticipate what all of them are.
I know. I mean, that, sure, but does that only take time? And 6 months from now, we're like, oh, well, nobody brought up any problems with it, so let's declare it beta. I'm just trying to get some more certainty around that. Okay.
So it sounds like we need a definition of done.
Right. And it seems like that definition should have some kind of deadline on it, where if nobody brings up specific concerns by a certain point in time, that we assume that no more concerns will be found.
I mean, or we could come up with a more concrete set of criteria, like Bridget was saying, of
Sure.
You know, this many network plugins and this many cloud providers.
Yeah, I can start working on a list like that if we want a list like that.
Sure.
I
Let's use that as a
am-
starting point.
Yeah.
Why not?
I am more of, if you have something that has to be there, let's talk about it now, and then otherwise somebody go and come with a list, and we either say good enough or no, it's not good enough, and we'll move forward. And by the
Sure.
way, as we move forward, if we want to declare this beta and somebody vetoed it out with a good reason, absolutely yes. It doesn't matter if we have a green checklist, right? So the right to veto before good reason is always there. I'm just happy that I will not have to babysit this PR anymore, to be honest.
Well, thank you for all the babysitting you've done in the past, Cal. All right, any more thoughts? Or shall we move on? Last chance. All right, Rob, you're up. Service API, resource naming.
This is a really tiny one. I already sent it out to the mailing list. We're just looking for alternative names that could potentially replace gateway in this API. And we've already gotten some fun suggestions. But if you like naming things, if you have any ideas, I encourage you to take a look and add some potential names we could use here. That's it.
All right. Thanks. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to talk about for the agenda before we go back to triage?
I have a quick random one. Oh, go ahead.
Just a comment. Antonio found out a very easy way to exercise and test the API machinery stuff as part of the testing. Most of our current testing today is in E2E. The problem with E2E is two things. You cannot run them locally unless you're like a test whiz, and we are not. All right. There are ways I discovered that while talking with the SIG test folks. The second thing is when you submit, it takes a good half an hour in order to get results to the thing, which makes them very unuseful to an inner loop, like tick, 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 test, and then come back with results. So the integration test, part of the PR, there is a huge integration test battery. He created it. I just modified it a bit. And there is a lot of wins in there. You can run them locally. They are easy to run. All you need is local HCD. And they are easy to run, and they give you result almost instantaneous. So my advice to you, if you are working with API changes, anything that has to do with validation, I need to test that this thing is created and updated correctly, or is created and updated, deleted correctly, and so on, please do look for integration, right? Please do look for integration. It will save your life, and it will save our life as we quickly test these things. Just a comment.
All right. Jay, you had another comment.
Yeah, was just talking to Andrew about this. Does anybody know if anyone is using either the Windows or the Linux user space kube proxy actively at all?
OpenShift makes extensive use of the user space kube proxy on Linux.
Okay, what's your use case for that?
Primarily to support our unidling feature,
Okay.
where you can idle a pod, but keep the service there. And then when any traffic hits the service, it will spin up pods to back it and hold that packet and then deliver it once an endpoint shows up.
Oh, is that like a system deactivate thing or whatever? No.
No.
Okay.
No, the Proxy posts an event, I think, to say I
Yeah.
need some pods, and then something listens for that and spins up the pods.
Okay. It sounds like you're doing some socket activation type stuff, but okay.
Yeah, but not
Conceptually
through.
the same, but it's
Yes.
not using systemd.
Yep.
It's just a way to do it in OpenShift. Okay, cool. I was just curious. I may have some questions. I may ping you in Slack at some point. I'm just going through the code trying to figure out how it works.
Yep. I would say that the user space proxy is not particularly well maintained. We do fix bugs when OpenShift finds issues with it, but most people don't really touch it. And as far as I know, it's not particularly well used outside of OpenShift.
We don't have any test grid jobs for it or anything, do we?
I don't think so. We test it in OpenShift downstream CI, but also we kind of have a hybrid proxy mechanism where some things, services that can be idled use the user space proxy, and those that aren't idled use or something like that. I forget the details.
Okay. And you don't know anyone who's using the Windows one, do you?
Not
I
offhand.
know. I know we happen to be using it for this one POC type thing, but I haven't found anyone else that's using it.
Yeah, but the Windows folks, they came to the SIG network 1 month ago or something like that. I mean, I don't know what kind of kube proxy are they using, but I know that they are using it.
Yeah, the Windows originally had only the user space proxy, which was a quick port of the Linux one, but now there's a Windows kernel proxy as well, which I assume is like better.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to bog down the whole thing. That's enough context to keep me going. Thanks, everybody.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anybody else, or shall we go back to triage? All right, back to you, Bridget.
Triage it is. Okay, we've got pod to pod, low bandwidth. Do we have like specific bandwidth limitations? Ooh, calico.
Just assign this one to me. I'll follow up.
Please remind me of your
DCBW.
Yes. I feel like I'm going to get that in the wrong order, and some poor person is going to get a whole lot of things assigned to them.
You wouldn't be the first.
Okay. Multiple back ends. It looks like somebody already answered this and was like, this is a wish list item you might not be getting, but.
Yeah, it's clearly triage. Oh, well, it has kind feature. Yeah, so it's been triaged.
Okay. So
I guess Tim isn't here, but that's my understanding. If it's a feature request and it's labeled as such, then that constitutes triage.
Okay, so how do I remove that?
I think remove needs triage, maybe.
No.
Who said
is it /triage something?
The bot should have explained it up above in the comment.
Okay. I just don't remember exactly how to
triage
change that.
accepted.
Oh
no, that's triage. I don't even know what that means.
So that means that it has been triaged?
Well, if we think it is a relevant issue, then we will accept it by applying triage accepted. Do we think this is a relevant issue?
Not necessarily. Okay, maybe it does need to be assigned to someone then. Okay. All right, I haven't taken any. You can assign it to me, Dan Winship.
Okay. You want to be the crusher of dreams today? No, you cannot have what you want. Okay, defining a wild card. This person has given them examples, and then they think that the documentation does not answer their question, and Jay was trying to get somebody else to look at this.
Yeah. He wanted to look into this. I think he's still digging into it. We could maybe give him another week.
Okay.
Look at this. I talked to him offline.
All right. Split Horizon DNS.
I don't think he's here today, but I'll ask him to come to the next SIG network case.
Okay. Every time I see Split Horizon DNS, I think you have dreams. We will see if it turns out the way you want it to. Okay.
And this is also a feature request, so we could just accept it and remove the needs triage label if we think it's relevant.
Do we think?
Can you go up to the top really quick?
Yeah.
I feel like the answer to this is write a core DNS plugin.
Do you want to explain that to them?
I think that we can CC the guys from Core DNS. I don't have the handle because maybe they can explain better than us. Assign to me, and I will follow up. I know the guy from Core DNS. I will. Maybe they have a way to do this without us doing anything.
Always the dream. Oh, this one got updated while I had it open.
Yeah, I think Chris put a PR in to improve some of those. And I don't know, we brought this up last time about how we at some point want to orthogonalize these tests. I guess this is more of a placeholder until we figure out how to do that.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at it now. I'll do triage accepted. Yeah, there was.
Okay.
There just needs to be some follow-ups, but yeah, that PR did merge that I originally had.
So can I assign this to you, Chris?
Yes.
I say it knowing full well that you can see my screen and you can see I'm doing it.
Yeah, and the funny fact with that thing is that one of the issues that we reviewed with, and one of the first issues was due to this. We changed the tag, and one of the jobs picked this test, and now it's failing. So that's why we should be very careful changing the tags.
Yeah, it seems like it's not really about changing the tags, but more about talking through it, and figuring out a plan for the long term.
No, I mean it's kind of fun fact, there's always a fallout with any of these changes.
All right. So speaking of fun facts, I love when we see, sorry to hear bad news. Tim's not against. Yeah, Tim's not against reasonable fixes to stop the bleeding, so that sounds great. Who would like this bug?
No, it's a bug. So we should just remove need triage. The CNI folks are already tracking.
Ah,
I would
they
say
have a reference somewhere.
Oh, and they've already answered this, so
yeah.
Yep.
All
remove the triage label. Just do triage accepted, I guess.
It's accepted.
I think it's triage
like
space accepted. Whatever the bot said up at the top.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bot.
Yeah, it's triage accepted.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Oh, this one I put a comment on.
We have panic at the kubelet.
Yeah.
And
there's a PR to fix it. It's probably good. I just wanted to make sure. So you can leave this one.
And the PR is merged.
Yes, it is.
So do we want to write back to the person and ask them if their problem is solved?
I did. That's the last comment on there.
Oh, right.
So I think we can leave
Okay.
this one as is or do triage accepted.
Sure. Mostly, I just don't want somebody to have to reprocess it.
Yep.
Right. We're getting to 17 days ago, which means Antonio has thoughts.
Sorry, which is this one?
Jobs that are flaking.
Oh, I have a bunch of these.
Possibly
Yeah.
from a kind job.
If this isn't helpful, I don't know if it's useful or not. Antonio mentioned it might just be
Okay. Yeah, I got it. So the thing is, if you click there, you need to, for flakes, we need to have a threshold. I mean, if it's not failing 2 or 3 times in a week, it's not worth the effort, because you are going to spend hours and maybe you are not going to be able to reproduce, and maybe it's the CI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a good point. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I gave you the link, so you go to the links and you see. I mean, if there are 3 failures in 3 days, then for me it's a flake. But the people from CI Signal in SIG release, they are already watching. So that's the thing. You go there and you see. If you
Yeah.
Okay, so when we see SIGNet flakes that are related to SIG network tests, we shouldn't file those as issues in general, unless there's like unless they're clearly.
But you need to think that sometimes fail because of the CI is, this is running, I don't know how many kind jobs in a machine, and there was a lot of contention in the previous release. So
Okay, cool. I just didn't know whether we were supposed to file them or not. I hate filing flakes. I just felt like I was supposed to, so I did.
As a rule of thumb, if you see 3 failures or you see this graph, that is that there is a pattern, just open for sure. And
Okay, so look at my test grid first, and then do it. Yeah, figure it out. I got you. You can close this one, Bridget, because I don't.
Oh, you don't want to write about why you're closing it?
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, maybe you could just say in there that it's whatever. I don't have enough data to really say this is a real bug. We yeah. I can look it up in test grid later if I.
Okay, I'll let you close it then.
Sure. Okay, I'll close it now. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. We're doing so great on our issues here. More flakes.
Yeah.
Yay.
Is this the same situation, Jay?
Yeah, I'll take care of all my flake files.
Yeah, all right. Ooh, error deleting contract entries for UDP peer. Oh. Did they reproduce it with a newer Kubernetes? We don't know, and they didn't answer. Let's see, the original submitter never came back and answered any questions.
I mean, it looks like the fix could be pretty simple, and this might be a good thing for.
Well, Tim, it looks like Tim got assigned to it in the last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he debugged it.
No, but
I mean, there's still an open question, but still, like our contract stuff should
still
not
listed
be.
as is this triage accepted?
I think we should triage accept it. It looks like a legit bug. There's no way we should ever be passing an empty string to contract.
Okay. Node IP. And Jay, you opened this one. Do you want to give us more?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. We have this issue where when we probe certain things from the E2E client, depending on how your firewalls are set up, you can have totally different test results based on whether or not you can access a node port through a local host port versus, because we set up a probing client, and depending on the location of the probing client, you get different test results, which means, for example, in this should update node port UDP test, you might run it 5 times, and 3 times it'll pass and 2 times it'll fail, because the client will come up. If you'll pass, for example, if the client is on a different node than the server. So to make it consistent, one thing we could do is just always spin the client up on the first node in the cluster, which seems to be a pattern. We do that in other places where we fix a particular node. That's one solution. The other solution is we could, run the test. I don't know. There's other solutions. I don't know.
I think the fix here is that we have to make a requirement of the test cluster be that node ports work. And maybe they only work with an unlimited range of ports or whatever, but because we make other requirements about the cluster that you're running the tests on, right? And I think this just has to be one of those requirements, that you don't have a firewall set up that blocks node ports.
Yeah, so it should always fail in that case, though, right?
Yeah, but
it doesn't matter what we do in that case, because it's not a valid cluster for running the EDE tests on.
Yeah, but the problem is that it can pass. That's the point. If it's not valid and depends on the way that runs at that time, it can pass the test. That's my understanding of the problem.
Yeah, it depends on depending on where the client comes up.
Yeah.
This test can pass.
Like if you have a node that reboots every 20 minutes, then maybe it will pass CI and maybe it won't. But we don't care, because you shouldn't be running the tests in that cluster.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, you can have a deterministic test that fails on that situation, and we don't have it.
I don't think it's hard to
team, no.
I mean, okay, so in that case, yes, I would say we should make sure to always probe from a different node.
Yeah, how do you use the node port? Always from a different node. So I think that's the thing that we need to be sure that we test.
What's the core problem here? That some nodes in the cluster that the EDE container runs on have different firewall rules?
Or that all of them have firewall rules, so that node ports only work to localhost. Bridget, you can just assign this to me and we can move on.
Okay.
Over comments.
Yeah, okay. Just if anyone's interested, the reason we saw this is actually in cluster API, like for AWS and stuff, we have UDP pretty locked down in certain cases, and certain customers want that. So that's why that's an important test for us, and having consistent results in it would be useful to us.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we're back to contract. We've got
contract bugs.
Table not flushed for UDP host port when pod deleted. So
what version of Cube are they using here again? 116, did it say?
Whoa. I mean, that's...
What's going on with UDP lately? There are a lot of issues with UDP. Okay, they're coming. So
some troubleshooting has already happened. Antonio has looked at this.
Quick. A lot of people are using Quick. Started to use Quick.
Because there are a lot of bugs lately.
Yeah, you will see it used even more and more.
Okay.
So Antonio, do you want this one since you've looked at it?
Yes, I was talking with him.
Sorry.
Could you put me as well on it? This is Zoe. I saw the word GKE in there.
All right.
Also, Antonio. Oh, okay. So it's host port manager. All right. Never mind.
Yeah, the host port manager.
Okay, so it's not. Yeah, got it. It would not surprise me if any of the host port manager stuff did not clear contract.
Yeah. Well. Okay. And dual stack. Yay. Do we tell them dual stack is different now? Stop trying to use it with the one.
I don't think this problem is fixed in 120. I think
That's a pod
Dan, you
IP.
had talked
Yeah, yeah.
about it before as well. At
There-
least
There's
internally.
ongoing discussion here. I think we can triage accepted this.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you assign me as well, admin? I haven't seen this.
Yes. See, now you have all the time and energy in the world for a whole bunch of exciting new issues, Cal. We are almost out of time, but we got maybe time for this one. Ooh, another flaky test.
It's already got assignees. Can we triage accept it?
Are we, what do we think, Bowie?
Looks like it's been
Oh,
assigned.
yeah, Minhan is taking a look at this.
Yep.
Okay.
Triage
So-
accept.
I'll get him to update.
Great. We're dropping packets right and left. Possibly center, who knows? We're running 117.
Dan, you probably have something to say here if you haven't already.
Looks like I assigned it to Antonio. No, wait, Tim.
So the guy said that he's running a asymmetric routing and some of these packets are declared invalid. So he wants to move the current IP table rules. And what I asked him is he can set in the kernel TCP liberal. So I mean, I don't feel that we should move all the IP table rules just because one scenario, and that, I mean, I don't know how valid is that scenario, honestly.
Yeah, it
Looks like we have that.
So yeah, the issue has sat around, but it's not because we're waiting on the reporter. Really, it's because we're just not moving on it. So I would say, although Tim added.
Oh, he just changed it when we changed the way the labels work.
Oh.
I would say it's probably triage accepted because we've had a lot of discussion on it so far, and we're still.
Yeah, we haven't decided if we're going to fix it, but we understand what's being discussed.
So
Sure.
my question for you is TCP setting the kernel TCP liberal an option, a good option for
I
us?
don't know exactly. I mean, his general comment is that we are making judgments about packets that are not part of kube proxy.
Okay.
We shouldn't be, you know.
Okay. From that perspective, you're right.
All right, I stopped to give
Thing
Dan
about
a
TCP
time.
liberal.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I can follow up. We found an interesting thing about TCP liberal. Basically, you should set it, is our conclusion. But I can take that to the mailing list.
That's I in the mailing list, in the IP tables, and in several places. I heard the same. You know, if you are using native environments, you should work with that. But I mean, I don't have any evidence that's.
Yeah, there was an interesting thing where there was a TCP bug in the Linux kernel introduced in 5x, and that caused all of the VMs with TCP liberal disabled to reject certain situations. So I'll send something out.
All right. And with that, we are out of time. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget, for running triage. Thanks, Cal, for
Thank
getting
you.
full stack services PR merged. Thanks everybody else for showing up today, and see you in 2 weeks.